Went on to explain that when my husband cheated on me a few months ago, the woman ended up getting pregnant. Apparently my husband has been providing for her and they were doing a gender reveal party today to celebrate everything. He told me that his entire family knew, including his mother, and they had been keeping it from me so I didn't freak out. I was furious. I couldn't believe that I had been practically killing myself taking care of a woman who kept this big of a secret from me, that I was carrying my husband's child that was literally killing me, all because he told me he wanted a kid more than anything in the world. I was disgusted and called for an Uber to take me home. When my husband finally got home, I expected him to be apologizing to me and I was prepared to reject all of it. Only instead he came storming in, furious, accusing me of abandoning his mother in her time of need. I asked what the hell he was talking about. Apparently his brother had to leave earlier, and just assumed I was still around, so he left and their mother was left all alone in the hospital. I asked him if his brother happened to mention a conversation we had at the hospital. He admitted that he did, but he didn't expect me to take my anger out on his poor defenseless mother, that I was a horrible person for abandoning her and that I had no right to be acting so petty. I told him he had no right to not tell me he had another kid with another woman. He said he couldn't stand to look at me and said we would discuss it in the morning, then went to bed. I couldn't believe anything that was happening, and got angry all over again. I packed a bag and took an Uber to my sister's house. I told her everything and she let me stay over, and promised she would have my back no matter what. The next day my husband kept calling and calling, demanding that I contact him so we could have a very important conversation. I agreed to meet at a restaurant near our house, as I didn't want him to know I was staying with my sister. As soon as he sat down he started talking about how grateful he was to have two amazing women that loved him, both pregnant with his children, and that he couldn't stand to leave his other child out in the cold. He told me he decided it would be best if we became a polygyny household, that way we could all be one big happy family. I just laughed in his face. I told him I wasn't going to encourage his cheating and just be okay welcoming his mistress and her son into my home. He said it was his home too, and he had every right to bring home whomever he wanted. I told him he was crazy and I wasn't okay with his plan in the slightest. He told me I'd better learn to be okay with it, as this was something he had decided for me. I told him no and got up to leave. He grabbed my arm and yanked me down. He told me I had better not defy him or I'd come to regret it. I wrestled my arm away from him and tried to leave the restaurant, when he slammed me against a table, hitting my stomach. I got the wind knocked out of me, and thankfully some good Samaritans stepped in to force him off of me. Two guys walked me outside to wait for my Uber, while another detained my husband inside the restaurant so I could leave. As soon as I got to my sister's place I started crying and she just held me. I told her I hated him, and I couldn't stand to be pregnant anymore, that I didn't want to have a baby in the first place, and now I was stuck with something inside me that could lead to my death, all for a man who cheated and lied and was threatening my safety. She suggested that I go to the doctors and see if I was still able to get an abortion, as the pregnancy would qualify for an emergency because of my hemorrhages. I took her advice and my doctor said it was possible. I decided to go through with it, and I plan to tell my husband and his entire family that I lost the baby because he slammed me into a table. I'd like to see if they still support him after learning that.